Bone Spear was already good, but it got even better with Season 3. Bosses are falling in seconds, Nightmare Vaults are not an issue. And here one of the key points is the permanent upkeep of your essence. That's one thing Bone Spear always struggled with, but there's two things that make this so much easier now. One is your Seneschal Companion, and the second is that every single aspect for the build can be had from the Codex of Powers. So even if you don't have a piece of gear, you can make the complete build straight away. Gameplay loop is quite simple, but has two things that you definitely need to look out for. First, you activate Bone Storm and then just zoom into your opponents, and with the Lidless Wall and your Bone Spears, you have an infinite barrier going on that will never have you die. Your Corpse Explosion and Tendrils are being automatically cast by the Ring of Sacrilegious Souls. In between, obviously cast as many Corpse Tendrils as you feel like to pull things together, but mostly you're zooming through the dungeon. Now, as you're zooming, make sure to always stay above 90 essence. That is half of your globe. I'm currently at 180 essence, and the more essence you have up and cast, the more damage you deal. Why exactly 90 we'll get to in the gear and aspect section. Your curse is being used for bonus damage, but also to have more damage reduction from your opponents. That's 20% and a bit of slow. And Blood Mist is for engaging to make a corpse for corpse tendrils, or just versus bosses if you're lacking 1-2 corpses, to just make sure that you always have something to explode for the 40% multiplier on the Flesh Eater node. Skills begin with Bone Splinters into Enhanced Bone Splinters, but we don't actually use a basic skill at all. Every single point into Bone Spear to then have the Paranormal Bone Spear going on, and here also imperfectly balanced with a 15% bonus multiplier and food flesh, so we always have corpses for the lucky hit chance, wide lucky hit chance, gear and aspect section. Now we do have Blood Mist as Corpse Blood Mist. I try to play Dreadful Blood Mist, but I often get in this situation where like, oh man, if I only had that one corpse to pull things together. Way too many times that Dreadful Blood Mist ain't worth it, and you have already over 75% critical strike chance anyways. Now we have all the points in Corpse Explosion, because realistically Corpse Explosion also is a huge part of our damage, so why would we not boost it as much up as possible? And here we're playing Play Corpse Explosion for the 8% multiplier. That's another 8% if they're slowed, another 8% if they're stunned, and another 8% if they're vulnerable. And yes, they all stack together, making you blast Corpse Explosions like crazy, which gets boosted by Fueled by Death with another 9% multiplicative when you consume a corpse, and also more damage to distant enemies. Technically, Death Reach could also be Death Embrace, but you're not really close to enemies. Most of the time, you're just zooming through. Followed by 12% more damage with Amplified Damage, and then also Decrepify into Abhorrent Decrepify for the cooldown reduction. We're not really needing the cooldown reduction that much, but if you don't have the Lidless Wall, there's an alternative aspect that can take care of this, together with Abhorrent Decrepify. Very good. And end of the day, more Bone Storms is more Bone Storms. Now we do have our Corpse Tendrils. Only do Enhanced Corpse Tendrils for the slow and the stun, but not the vulnerable, because that's what our bot is doing continuously and better. The Corpse Tendrils are really not needed anymore as the played ones. Sounds weird, but it is that way. Now we do only have 1 point in Serration, and that is less critical strike chance per essence up and cast, but we already have 75%. I mean, 75 or 80% doesn't make a difference. Bonus damage for our bonus skills on critical striking, and also Evosion for the bonus damage versus vulnerable. And here you want your amulet to give the 3 bonus ranks to 100%. Lastly, Standalone and also Memento Mori for the sacrifice and damage reduction bonuses, and Bone Storm with Prime Bone Storm and Supreme Bone Storm for the bonus critical strike chance, which happens all the time. So you have a plus 20% fixed. Now that goes into our ossified essence, and here comes with the essence up and cast, but this is only step 1. So your bone skills have more damage the more essence you have up and cast. And if you now have infinite topped up essence, if you're always at the maximum, well, yeah, you guessed right. That's quite fantastic multiplier. That goes hand in hand now with the aspect of Serration, because it makes our ossified essence have another 40% bonus for every point of essence above 50. So if I cast now with 90 essence, I get the 40% bonus from here and everything I get from the ossified essence anyways, which means that optimally I cast always around 120, 130 if I have 180 max, but I never cast below 90, because as soon as if I cast below 90, the bonus of this aspect gets lower. Now it's pretty easy to keep your essence up as we have exposed flesh running. Yep, Up to 10% chance to generate 48 essence when hitting a vulnerable enemy. Perfection. Here on the ring, you want critical strike chance, damage, lucky hit chance. It could be max life, physical damage, or vulnerable damage. Now these two together make sure to always keep you topped up and to have you do max damage. The coolest part is these two aspects are in the Codex of Powers. Under resource and also under offensive, you get the serration when you clear the seasonal journey chapter 5. And yes, you guessed right, the splintering aspect for clearing the Ghoul slums and the dry steppes that you need on your gloves for bonus damage are also in the Codex of Powers. Yep, that is for your bone splinters 60% multiplier. Here you want bone spear, critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, and preferable attack speed. On the weapon by the way is a sword, but I do want it to be a wand. The sword is okay, but I need an intrinsic lucky hit chance to be able to trigger exposed flesh even more. That is also where the Litless Wall comes in, because the Litless Wall gives us more bone storms. More bone storms is more sources of lucky hit to then keep our essence up. Also attack speed and maximum essence bonus for more damage, on top of just allowing us multiple bone storms. If you don't have this, there's the aspect of the Osseous Gale, which you can put on your offhand, and it will consume corpses to essentially prolong the duration of Bone Storm. That one is the alternative to not having the poor man's choice of the Litless Wall. Works very well though, and your offhand can then have critical strike chance and lucky hit chance even. Second ring would be the Ring of Sacrilegious Souls, and here goes for the lucky hit chance, maximum life, bonus essence again, and the ranks to corpse skills for bigger corpse explosions. And the corpse explosion tendrils are being auto-cast while you're bone spearing the whole time, which is a bonus that should not be underestimated, since every second, every press of the bone spear button, you essentially get a free corpse explosion for maniac damage. Amulet is rocking currently total armor percentage. Yes, that's the most important stat on it, and also ranks to Evulsion. Then we have the corpse tendril pulled together for the 30% critical strike chance and the 60% multiplier on our critical strike damage, which catapults our 900% into Madness Oblivion. I have ranks to Macabre skills from the Bone Spirit build. Here you could go for ranks on corpse skills, movement speed, intelligence, all damage, damage reduction, whatever you're looking for. Our chest is Soulbrand for the lucky hit chance, while you have Barrier, damage reduction from close, and also damage reduction as you have Barrier. That one can easily be replaced with a chest that has total armor percentage and max life on it, then maybe physical damage, ultimate skill damage, or any kind of damage reduction to make you more sturdy. Hands are mandatory to also have total armor percentage to push this even further. Maximum life, damage reduction. Damage reduction while fortified doesn't work right now, but that's also partially because Necrotic Carapace is not working as intended, else I would be constantly fortified. Could have my Seneschal Companion fortify me, but I don't want that because he has way more useful things to go for. Also, our Bone Storm gives us a barrier, and that's how we don't actually die. Bone Storm's continuously up, barrier continuously up, Undying Calamity. Lastly, there is the Deathless Visage, and that one is mandatory, even more important than a Harlequin Crest. Yes, it gives us maximum essence, more damage, we talked about it, fizz damage, critical strike damage, and damage reduction, plus the actual Bone Spear leaves behind echoes that explode. These echoes get 5x more damage for every 30% of your critical strike damage bonus, and we have 900%. Yeah, it scales up so high beyond belief. For our boots, it is Flicker Step right now as we're dashing through things to have even more cooldown reduction, movement speed, ultimate skill damage, which works really well to make our Bone Storm actually a deathly slapping machine that goes like for 100,000s of crits as well. Now you could take any triple dash boots, you could take the Penitent Greaves for the chill bonus multiplicative damage, Ghost Walker aspect, or Critical Strike gives you more movement speed. All alternative options for this. You do notice we have 10,000 armor and we're actually rocking skulls in our jewelry for even more armor. I had a chest with total armor percentage almost at 12,000, but 10,000 is actually enough considering that tier 70 is what we need to do for the leaderboard. But also with the barrier, tier 100 dungeons are easy as ever, as you can see here. Skeletal warriors are being sacrificed for bonus elemental resistance, so we don't have to waste any Paragon points on this. And also the skeletal mages for the vulnerable bonus multiplier damage. And lastly, the golem to give us even more critical strike damage, 30% X. Paragon board into the companion. The Paragon board has some interesting damage while healthy shenanigans going on, because damage while healthy is its own little multiplier in the bucket with all the damage while things, and it catapults your damage into insanity. Now we do have the sacrificial glyph first for the bonus on these nodes. but also for the 10% multiplicative damage if we don't have minions active. Which brings us into the Bone Graft board for more essence, 16 maximum essence bonus, more damage. Also here, more essence and essence on kill. Because essence on kill allows us to just zoom, max essence, zoom, max essence, and always have it maxed out at any pack we meet. With the 200% bonus critical strike damage multiply, with the bonus 200% critical strike damage, and also a 22% multiplier against not healthy opponents. And then we have here more damage, more critical strike damage, more critical strike chance. I wish I could go for the node for the 8% more life, but we can't reach that right now. I'll tell you an option at the end. There's also Flesh Eater for another 40% multiplier with crit damage and crit damage. And then we're going here into the Corporal for more physical damage, which works on all the damage we deal, bonus to resistance and bonus to damage to elites. Leading into our Scent of Death board for a 15% damage reduction, but also a 15% increased damage if there's no corpses. For crit, 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 and even more crits, which then gives us crits and crits. And the Imbiber glyph. Yes, Imbiber is so important here for damage while healthy. Try using it, try not using it. It's quite nice. Alternative, if you don't like Imbiber, there's the Control glyph for the 20% multiplicative damage versus stunned and slowed enemies. This is very easy to achieve because in vaults, you can stun and slow everything. Against boss farming, not so useful. Lastly, there is the Bloodbath board for the damage while healthy, and also the vulnerable damage bonus and bonus multiplier with the exploit glyph. You could also play Exhumation for more corpse skill damage on the corpse explosion, and also fortify whenever you use a corpse, which essentially would have you fortified with another 14% damage reduction in total. Not a bad thought to potentially put in there. And then we're actually going into Blood Baguettes for the damage while healthy again. This you could take out to spend more points into life, armor, and also down here into the Scent of Death board with more armor to reach the armor cap of 13.5 very easily. Lastly, we do have our companion, and he's pretty amazing right now. Tempest, every 0.9 seconds, we get 20 essence. We make everyone vulnerable. And also, we get 14% critical strike chance. Now, you can see I'm not using arcing, but Tempest is already hitting enough opponents anyways, and it has been working to consistently make everything vulnerable. If you feel like you're not making enough targets vulnerable, I recommend taking efficiency support out and actually adding arcing in, because then Tempest just hits more opponents net total. But so far, the Tempest plus the breaking has been more than enough to make sure that I always get my vulnerable lucky hit chance happening. Then we're going for Flesh of Adrenaline, and Flesh of Adrenaline gives us 20% bonus damage. That gets a cooldown reduction and a duration increase, plus safeguard support that we get another 15% multiplicative damage reduction. Now, if we would have Evernight and Genesis, Evernight would easily go in for arcing on the Tempest, and Genesis would go easily in for safeguard support or duration. Because even if duration goes out, we're still having every 12 seconds an 8-second long damage multiplier. And that would still be good enough. Want to be an absolute menace? Bone Spear is definitely what you want to play and prepare for the leaderboard. Alternative, there is the Bloodlands build, which does equivalent damage and might be even more fun to play.